Hi dear students, you are welcome in this video. Dear students, we have studied so far the history of Indian writing in English and we have made so many videos on the same. If you want to explore history of Indian writing in English, just you can go and check the playlist called Indian writing in English, and there you will find the history of Indian writing in English and how Indian writing in English has been developed. Now today we are going to talk about a topic in the Indian writing in English, and here we have a poem. Here you see very Indian poem in Indian English, or the same poem is called as the Patriot, and it is composed by Nissim Ezekiel, the very first modern English poets writing in English. We can consider him. So here let's start with the very Indian poem in Indian English. Before that, we will understand what kind of questions may be asked in your examinations. For example, here you see the questions like this might be there in your examination. For example, how does the poet depict the principles of non-violence and peace? Now you will get idea about this poem. This poem is about non-violence and peace. The second question here we have, illustrate Mahatma Gandhi as an universal apostle of peace. Now the poem is related to Mahatma Gandhi and his principles of non-violence and peace. The third question might be like this, critically analyze the poem as an Indian English poem. Now we are going to explore the Indian English aspects in the poem, and we will try to find out the features of Indian English through this poem. The fourth question may be, how did the poet use Indian English expressions to impart Indianness to the poem? Again, the same kind of things we are going to explore here. What is the Indian English, or what kind of expressions are there in Indian English, or what are the major features of the Indian English, or how Indian people speak English? We will explore through this poem. Now, before starting the poem, again let's understand the background to Nissim Ezekiel, the poet. Now here we have the picture of Nissim Ezekiel. Nissim Ezekiel, the lifespan is 1924 to 2004. Now he was born in Mumbai, and then it is called as the then Bombay. The poet is considered first of the modern Indian poets writing in English. If you look at the history of Indian writing in English, you will understand the place of Nissim Ezekiel, because after post-independence we find he was one of the major poets writing in English, and hence he becomes the first modern Indian poets writing in English. He studied at Wilson College, which is situated in the then Bombay, or in Mumbai now, and he also studied philosophy at Birkbeck College, London. So he was highly educated person, and then he became professor of English at the University of Bombay, and he taught there for so many years, and he was also worked as visiting professor at several universities in India, USA and Australia. So he also worked as an editor of The Quest. This is very important journals in English, The Quest imprint. Then he also worked as an editor of the poetry page of the Illustrated Weekly of India. This is again a very famous journal in English, and he was awarded one of the most prestigious civilian honors in India, Padma Shri, in 1988 for his contribution to the literature, or his contribution as a citizen of India. Now again let's understand some of the major works he composed. Basically he composed poetry, and there are so many poetry collections, but he also composed 3 plays, and this is called as the collection of plays published in 1969, which included 3 plays called Nalini, then Sleepwalkers, and there is one another play called Marriage Poem. So these 3 plays were included in this collection of 3 plays in 1969. Now here we have his collections of poems. Very first, A Time to Change. These are famous works. You can note down all these works by Nissim Ezekiel. Published in 1952, 60 poems. Second, we have published in 1953. Then we have the third, 1959. The Unfinished Man, again a collection of poetry, 1960. Then we have The Exact Name, 1965. Then we have a translation, Snakeskin and Other Poems. Actually, this is composed by a Marathi poet called Indira Sant, a very famous Marathi poet, Indira Sant, and he translated these poems into English as Snakeskin and Other Poems in 1974. This is translation on his name. Then we have Hymns in Darkness, 1976, and last here we have Latter Day Psalms, 1982, which won the Sahitya Academy Award in 1983, means in next year. So these are some of the collections of poetry which were very famous by Nissim Ezekiel. Now dear students, let's talk about the poem called Very Indian Poem in Indian English. Now this poem has been composed in 6 stanzas. There are 6 stanzas and we will go through each stanza. I will first read this stanza and explain line by line, and we will try to answer the questions we discussed before. For example, how Indian English is used here in composition of poetry. So let's start. Very first stanza here we have. This is the first stanza, and I will read the stanza then explain to you. So I read, I am standing for peace and non-violence. Why world is fighting? Why all people of world are not following Mahatma Gandhi? I am simply not understanding. Ancient Indian wisdom is 100% correct. I should say even 200% correct. But modern generation is neglecting too much, going for fashion and foreign things. Now if you look at this stanza, you will understand how Indian English is used in this stanza or in the composition of the poetry. Now very first line, I am standing for peace and non-violence. Now this peace and non-violence is directly related to Mahatma Gandhi, because Mahatma Gandhi is considered as the apostle of peace and non-violence, and here this poem is about peace and non-violence and the principles of Mahatma Gandhi. Now here very first line we see that I am standing. Now this present continuous tense you will find used throughout the poem. This shows that how Indian people tend to use present continuous tense instead of simple present, and hence we find that the present continuous is used here. I am standing for peace and non-violence. Who is standing for peace and non-violence? Mahatma Gandhi. Directly he is referring to Mahatma Gandhi. Now why all people of world are not following? He is not talking about only the Indian people but people around the world, because Mahatma Gandhi is a universal figure who taught peace and non-violence to the world, not only to Indians, and hence he is saying that why all people of world are not following Mahatma Gandhi. So here he just gives us the very picture of Mahatma Gandhi and how people are not following his principles. So this is in the mind of Nissim Ezekiel or the poet, and he says that why all people of world are not following Mahatma Gandhi. I am simply not understanding. Now this is again we find that I am understanding. So this is again present continuous. Simply, again he uses the word simply, not understanding. Why people are not following is beyond the imagination of Nissim Ezekiel. They are not following Mahatma Gandhi, and hence he says that, or a common person or a common Indian, if you place a common Indian in the place of Nissim Ezekiel, you will understand how we think. So this is the thinking process of a common Indian, and he says that I am not simply understanding. I do not understand why people are not following Mahatma Gandhi, who is talking about non-violence and peace, how peace is important in the world and how world has been distracted in the past few decades. If you look at the time span of Nissim Ezekiel, you will understand he saw Second World War and the partition of India, and hence he is talking about peace and non-violence, how peace and non-violence is important all over the world. Just he is giving an example of Mahatma Gandhi or his principles that we should follow. Next you see that ancient Indian wisdom is 100% correct. Now again we have a habit of speaking that when we want to emphasize something or when we want to say something very correctly, that we use 100%. This expression, it is 100% correct. There are some people again who exaggerate and say that it is 200% correct. The ancient wisdom of India is 200% correct or 200% accurate, or we can say that 200% truth is there in the ancient wisdom. So this is what the expressions used by common Indians when they speak about something or when they emphasize some things. Now here you see again ancient Indian wisdom. He is giving a reference of the ancient Indian wisdom, that we should follow those ancient Indian wisdom. But modern generation, now again here you see the word but, and here we have a contrast. So we should follow ancient Indian wisdom, but instead of following this ancient Indian wisdom, the new generation or the younger generation is just following what? Too much going for fashion and foreign things. Now we are obsessed with some foreign things and foreign fashion, but we are not trying to follow Mahatma Gandhi's peace and non-violence, the principles of peace and non-violence, or the ancient Indian wisdom. Instead of, the younger generation is going behind or following the fashion, Western fashion and Western things. So this is what the very first stanza gives us a picture of Mahatma Gandhi's principles and the young generation in India. So this poem is very important, not only as an English poem, but it just uses the Indian English, and hence it becomes more significant for study. Too much going for fashion and foreign things. So the younger generation is just behind this fashion and foreign things. Instead they should go for peace and non-violence, or the principles of Mahatma Gandhi, or ancient Indian wisdom. So this is the first stanza. Second stanza here, you see in the second stanza the same thought is just stretched, and I'll read this stanza and then we will try to explain. Other day I am reading in newspaper, every day I am reading Times of India to improve my English language. How one Gunda fellow throw stone at Indira Ben, must be student unrest fellow. I am thinking, friends, Romans, countrymen, I am saying to myself, lend me the ears. Now in the second stanza you see he starts with other day I am reading newspaper, and he is reading Times of India. Now generally we now this is the mundane experiences of poet, just he's incorporated those experiences in his poem. What is his experience? That he reads every day Times of India, or a common Indian reads Times of India to improve his English. And Times of India is one of the important newspapers in India, where you find different types of news. And just he read that I am reading newspaper. Again the same, I am reading, this continuous tense is used. What did he read? He read how one Gunda. Now here he uses one instead of a. So a Gunda or one Gunda fellow throw stone at Indira Ben. Now this might be reference to the then Prime Minister of India, Indira Gandhi, and he says that the fellow might be a student unrest, or there should be some unhappy events happened with the student, or he might be unrest student or fellow students. Just he is thinking, he is not sure about that student or that fellow Gunda, but someone thrown a stone against Indira Gandhi or upon Indira Gandhi, and just he read in newspaper called Times of India. He uses this newspaper to improve his English language. Now here we can understand that how English language is important, and how Indians improve their English language based on the newspapers like Times of India or the Indian Express. Here we have reference of the Times of India, the most read newspaper in India. Must be student unrest, again he says. And now in the next lines you see, friends, Romans, countrymen, I am saying to myself. Now this reference is direct to Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar, the play composed by William Shakespeare. This reference is to William Shakespeare's play Julius Caesar, and just these are the words of Caesar, and he says to his fellow countrymen, friends, Romans, countrymen. Now this refers to the poet, that just he is saying to all Indians, to all people around the world that we should follow the principles of Mahatma Gandhi or the ancient Indian wisdom, and hence he uses here friends, Romans, countrymen, a phrase from Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare. Now again in the second stanza, just he is saying how we should be obedient to the principles of Mahatma Gandhi of the non-violence, because here we have an event of violence, that one Gunda fellow throw stone at Indiraben. Someone has thrown the stone at Indiraben, and here he uses this word Gunda. Gunda is a hooligan, we can say in English, and this is the Indianization of English. Here so many Indian expressions he is using continuously. You see that there is I am saying, again present continuous tense is used, I am thinking. Now this kind of expressions, one, this kind of expression, instead of saying a Gunda we say one Gunda generally in speaking, and the same he has used here. To improve my English language, so he reads Times of India, this kind of newspaper. So this is the second stanza. I hope you understand the second stanza. Now let's move to the third stanza. Now third stanza, here we have only 3 lines in the third stanza, and here everything is coming. What is coming? Again present continuous, everything is coming. What is coming? Regeneration. Regeneration means revival. Remuneration means compensation. Contraception means safety. So what is coming? Regeneration, remuneration and contraception is coming, but we should have patience. We should wait for the things coming, and we should behave in that way. So be patiently. Again he is advising us to be patient, patiently. Now this phrase he is used be patiently, or he is not using be patient, but when an Indian uses English, he uses in this way, be patiently. Brothers and sisters, now he is just calling all the Indians as brothers and sisters. So we all are brothers and sisters, and hence we should be following the principles of Mahatma Gandhi, or we should be behaving like brothers and sisters. Now next stanza, this is the fourth stanza in the poem. You want 1 glass lassi. Now in this stanza we find that there is comparison between wine and lassi. Here very first, you want 1 glass lassi. Now instead of saying 1 glass of lassi, just he is saying 1 glass lassi, a glass of lassi. So the fine expression would be, or an English expression would be, a glass of lassi, but he is writing 1 glass of lassi. Okay, very good for digestion. Now the importance of lassi, and it is just you see that lassi versus wine. Here we have a comparison between wine and lassi. So lassi is good for digestion. Next, with little salt lovely drink. So it can become a very lovely or fine drink if you add a little salt or some salt into the glass of lassi. Better than wine. Just what is better than wine? Lassi is better than wine, and we Indians generally drink lassi instead of wine. Just he is giving the cultural connotation of both the drinks, lassi and wine. Now wine is considered a very common drink in Western world, but in India wine is not considered a common drink. Actually it is a harmful drink. Indians generally consider wine drinking a bad habit. Now here lassi drinking is not bad habit, but lassi is, again we say that good for digestion. And instead of drinking wine, or instead of following Western culture or following Western traditions, we should follow the Indian traditions. What is Indian tradition? To drink lassi, or the drinks like lassi, or we should avoid what? The wine. Here is the direct comparison. Not that I am ever tasting the wine. So he is saying that I had never tasted the wine, and in the next line, I am the total teetotaler, completely total. Now again this expression says that this is the Indian English. Now you need not to place total before this teetotaler. The very meaning of this teetotaler means the person who never drinks alcohol. So you need not to place just total, but we Indians generally when we want to emphasize something, we add words, we add adjectives. In the same way, we here find total teetotaler, again completely total. Now, I never drink alcohol, I never use alcohol is the meaning of this line. Teetotaler means the person who never drink alcohol. But I say, again what he is saying, but I say wine is for the drunkards only. Now, drinking wine is a bad habit in India, and hence he is just emphasizing that the people who are drinking wine, they are drunkards, and wine is for drunkards, and for common people we have lassi. So this is the Indian ethos or the Indianness in the poem you can find, and this kind of things here he has incorporated in the poem. Now again, there is one another thing, that if you look at the diction of the poem, what is diction? Diction is nothing but vocabulary used in the poem. Now if you look at this diction, you find that very simple, mundane, routine kind of words he used in the composition of the poem, and hence this poem becomes very simple poem to understand for students. So this is the critical analysis of the poem or fourth stanza. Now let's move to the next stanza, stanza number 5. Now this is you can say a lengthy stanza in overall poem, and here, what do you think of prospects of world peace? Now here is a question for the young generation. What would you think about peace in the world? Pakistan behaving like this. So these are the complete expressions by a average English learner in India. China behaving like that. We have two references of Pakistan and China, who are two hostile neighbors to India, and they always are indulged in some kind of activities which lead to war. So warfare is the thing these neighbors impose upon us, and hence he is saying that prospects of world peace. What do you think about these prospects of world peace? And we have the hostile neighbors like Pakistan and China. It is making me very sad. What is making sad? The activities of China and Pakistan. I am telling you, just I tell you, really most harassing me. So this kind of things always harasses me internally. The activities of the Pakistan and China, or the destruction of peace, or the these countries are destroying peace. These things are harassing me. All men are brothers. No. Now again here the placing of no is an expression of Indian English. All men are brothers. So we all are brothers and sisters in India also, and he is just providing us the examples of India, how India is united into the variety, how we have various kind of things geographically, culturally, socially, economically. Then again we have different types of varieties, but we all are united. How? Just he is saying in India also we have Gujaratis, we have Maharashtrians, we have Hindi walas. Hindi walas means the people who speak Hindi or who use Hindi as a communication. All brothers, we all are brothers. Though some are having funny habits, still we do have some funny habits, but still we are united as a India or as an Indian. So though there are Gujaratis, Tamilis, Maharashtrians, Hindi walas, then we have Keralas, or we have different types of cultures, but still we are united as a India or Indian masses. Still you tolerate me. Now there are different types of cultures, different types of states, and these states have different types of habits. We can say that some people have funny habits, but still we tolerate all those funny habits because we are Indians. So the same kind of thing we should be in the world canvas. For example, Pakistan and China must follow the principles of Mahatma Gandhi, the principles of peace and non-violence. Here he is asking us, I tolerate you, so you tolerate me, I tolerate you, and we live side by side without any violence. This is the Indianness. Again, one day Ramarajya surely coming. Now he is giving the reference of Ramarajya. What is there in the Ramarajya? In Ramarajya we find that all people are happy. There is no problems, there is no violence, there is only peace, and we are leading to the Ramarajya. And he is hoping that one day this Ramarajya will come and all people become happy, and there would be peace and non-violence all over the world. So he is giving the reference of Ramarajya. Surely is coming. Again, is coming. This is the present continuous. Now this is the fifth stanza. Let's move to the last stanza of the poem, and here we find the last stanza. This is the stanza 6. Here you see, you are going. Now who is going? The reader is going. But you will visit again. But you will come again to me, or you will come to the principles of Mahatma Gandhi. You will come to Mahatma Gandhi. You will understand Mahatma Gandhi. You will understand his philosophy of peace and non-violence and coexistence. Anytime, any day. So you will return anytime, any day. I am not believing in ceremony. So I don't believe in some kind of ceremony that someone will come and establish this peace. But we have to go back to the principles of Mahatma Gandhi and the principles of non-violence and peace. So always I am enjoying your company. Whose company the poet is enjoying? The company of Mahatma Gandhi, the principles of Mahatma Gandhi, the principles of non-violence and cooperation, and again we can say that the peace. So this is the poem. If you look at this complete poem, you will understand how simple diction is used, how simple vocabulary is used, and how the poet has developed his thought on non-violence and peace. The basic theme of this poem is peace and non-violence, the principles of peace and non-violence. Actually, this can be an address to the younger generation in India that we should follow the principles of Mahatma Gandhiji. So this is what about, and hence this poem is called as the Patriot. The subtitle or the main or original title of this poem is the Patriot. Why? Because we find that this is the expectations of poet from the younger generation, that they should follow the non-violence and peace, and it has been you see that composed in a very lucid language by Nissim Ezekiel. So I hope you understood all the stanzas or six stanzas of the poem. If you have any problem, any query, you can directly contact me, or you can write in the comment section below. So I will answer to your queries. So thank you very much. Let's meet in the next video.